Just going to wait a couple more minutes just to ensure that everybody makes it in. Feel free to open the chat box up because that's where a lot of the information will be coming to you. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Oh wow, I used to live in Odenton, Maryland. Ooh, that was a minute ago. Hello.
Hey, Jim. Howdy.
So Nikki, how long do you want to give this? I know we had a bunch
I
of
usually
people
wait until
register.
like 11:03.
Oh,
So one
yeah.
more minute.
I hate to leave people behind, but everyone's time is valuable. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of registrants that aren't yet on here, but that's okay. Oh, I see a lot of members of my faculty. Wonderful. My esteemed faculty.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep an eye on the waiting room, Emily, and I'll just admit them as they pop in. Um, just a quick hello to everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the virtual launch party today. We're going to be discussing a first of its kind credential that serves a critical national need. If you haven't already done so, please drop your name and location into the chat. And if you can, what brought you here today? I'll be your MC, Nikki James Zellner, a military spouse, entrepreneur, author, and activist. And here's some housekeeping for today. Our preference is that your mics are muted, but your videos are on. Um, when possible, obviously. Don't keep them on at all times if you need to excuse yourself for a moment. And we'll be taking questions at the end, but if any point you want to be sure to remember the question, feel free to drop it into the chat, and we're going to be queuing it and answering it live at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off today. I'm here to introduce Emily, who is a dear friend and client. And I want you to know that when I say I've met a lot of people that claim to understand the veteran and military space, um, a lot of times that's limited to people who were in service. It's very rare that I meet somebody who truly understands the transition aspect in particular, which my husband and I went through within the last 5 years. In the outside world, I would say Emily is my go-to person for all questions on veteran transition into the civilian workforce. And so I'm here to introduce Emily today. She's spent over 20 years helping organizations and veterans succeed. She's authored two books, Field Tested and the award-winning At Ease, The Guide to a Smooth and Successful Military Transition, to help service members navigate this journey. And she's also created the Accelerated Military Transition course to provide an actionable roadmap for them to do that. For the coaches and support professionals who coach and train veterans, she has created the Certified Military Transition Coach Certification, which you're learning about today. And for the companies that hire them, she's helped create recruitment, onboarding, integration, and retention strategies and programs at organizations like Booz Allen Hamilton, AARP, Fannie Mae, Sodexo, Comcast, and Merck. And so now I'm going to toss it over to Emily, who is your host for today.
Hey, everybody. Wow, that's pretty hard to listen to for someone who's kind of on the humble side. But I want to thank you all for your interest, for taking a few minutes today to learn about something that I really think is a game changer. It's long overdue. It's a long time coming. You know, all the time that I've been in this space, the progress on the topic of military transition has moved remarkably glacially. And so this program is one of many levers that I've developed to try to really change the game for veterans and for the companies that employ them, because there are many stakeholders in the transition process. So let's go ahead and talk about why this is important right now. Can you just speed? There we go. Okay, so as many of you know, there are, this number is often reported 200,000 members of the military separate from service every year. That doesn't mean they all enter the civilian workforce, but many of them, if not most of them, do. Some of them may have the ability to retire or pursue something different altogether, but most go into the workforce. And what this number doesn't represent is their family members who are also entering the workforce, the spouses, the adult children, et cetera. So those I refer to as military connected because, having been part of a military family, you were part of the military, the military world. And so many of the transition challenges that apply to veterans also apply to spouses, and certainly the complexity of the military transition process impacts the families. So the problem statement here is that most of those folks entering the civilian workforce are completely unprepared for what they are about to experience. Those of you who have coached veterans know exactly what I'm talking about. So why is this? Let's go ahead to the next slide. In my opinion, in my educated opinion and experience, the current approach to and the current definition to military transition as it is addressed by the military itself through its transition assistance program and by the 40,000 plus VSOs, veteran service organizations that are out there to support veterans in one way or another, looks like this. It's a very tactical focus on resume writing, getting your military experience somehow into a format that a civilian recruiter could understand and promote. Um, that's been tackled many times over, and there's still a lot of attention put there. And then focusing also on the job search and how to use LinkedIn and how to just get that job and keep the paycheck coming in. And what that has led to, not just currently, but for the last, 20 years at least since I've been doing this, is a series of jobs. Job one, job two, job three, and the veteran is returning time and again to the job market, which is anyone who's looked for a job before knows it can be kind of soul destroying. So you don't want to be back in there. And these job changes often happen in the first year out of service. The end result is, among many end results, is underemployment, which is, at its simplest definition, it is taking a job, the veteran takes a job that does not meet their needs. It either doesn't allow them to contribute what they have to contribute, doesn't meet their financial needs, maybe it doesn't meet their logistical or family needs, whatever the case may be, it leads to this pattern of job hopping. So that has negative outcomes for everybody, the veteran and the employer. From the veteran standpoint, it keeps them in this cycle of job churn. It has been linked with veteran suicide. the stress around military transition. And that, if you aren't aware, is a real problem in the veteran community for all of us. The high incidence of suicide is something that we should all be worried about. This is a very pragmatic way of kind of doing something to try to help that. For the employer, the negative outcome of this approach of just focusing on the resume and the job search is, high and fast attrition in this talent segment, low return on investment on, the recruitment process, sourcing, hiring veterans, training them, low return on investment there because of the attrition. And then ultimately, what we're seeing is a reduction of interest or confidence in veterans as a viable pool of ready talent. So some employers decide they don't want to be the training ground for veterans so that they can just quit and go somewhere else. Others have unreasonable fears and concerns based on stereotypes. So there's a lot of misinformation, but we really, really want to break this pattern. It's damaging, it's persistent, but we have been at Grandanetta Group coaching veterans for decades to succeed in their civilian workplaces, while we also work with those civilian workplaces to help them be smarter about how they accelerate time to performance and ongoing engagement among the veterans they hire. So now we really want to try to take this to scale, and this program is part of that. What we reimagine, and have realized in our work with organizations over the years is a very different process here of military transition, a different way of looking at it, where the psychosocial aspects of military transition, which I have studied and coached on over the years with great success and write about extensively in the books that I've published and articles and blogs and newsletter, all of that, really gets at this psychosocial piece. Not at the expense of resume writing and job search. Those are important, but my experience is that when we tackle that psychosocial piece at the front end, there are less job changes. And the end result is hopefully retention and success in the first one or two jobs. Because a lot of what veterans need to learn in that military transition program is not about the specific company they work for. It's about what it means to be a civilian employer, what professionalism looks like, the new rules of the new game. Some examples of the psychosocial impacts that we see and have seen over the years are a loss of identity, loss of purpose, loss of community, loss of all that is familiar, right? These are the themes that veterans report to us in the work that we've done with them over the years, and also what we see, and primary places where we are applying coaching in a positive way with good results. So you may be thinking, well, okay, those are not exclusive to veterans. They don't corner the market on those particular psychosocial things. So why do we need a course about how to coach veterans? The reason why we need a particular program for coaches is that coaching veterans is very, very different than coaching career civilians or students or other populations. It's almost as if you're coaching someone in a completely different language. You may be a great coach. I'm sure you're a great coach. How great can you be with the blindfold of not understanding this population's very specific blind spots, their specific set of assumptions and expectations? All of those things contribute to that job churn. All right. So I think as coaches, we're taught, having gone through accredited programs, we're kind of taught that we can coach anyone. We don't have to have been a CEO to coach a CEO. We don't need to have been in the oil and gas industry to coach somebody in the oil and gas industry. We need to have solid coaching skills. That is largely, I think, the case, as you've probably experienced. Not so when coaching veterans. Not so. They are bringing something very different into the coaching conversation or into the coaching context. Um, they bring a completely different language and lexicon that they understand and speak fluently that you as the coach probably don't. And it doesn't mean that you have to. That's not what we're going to teach you to do. We're not going to teach you to be a veteran. They also have a very particular organizational context, and they bring the expectation that their civilian work will be similar. And so there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen, dismantling of assumptions and expectations. Their values are different. For example, just a small example, values related to communication. Efficiency and clarity is priority in the military. Relationship building, trust building is kind of how we communicate in the civilian world to get things done. Those are very, very different. They're deep patterns. It's not second nature, it's first nature for veterans to operate the way that they do. And the military transition itself, that phenomenon that I've studied all these years, is a very specific, particular experience. It's got a structure to it. It has stages, and coaching has been a powerful, if not the most powerful, way of working with veterans to have a smooth and successful and positive experience. Because for so many, it's very fraught and challenging and diminishing. So we can help that. We are in a position, unlike almost any other group, we as professional coaches are in a position to make a real difference right away. But there is a lot that we need, and we need to actually coach differently to be effective with this group. It's going to feel very different coaching veterans than it likely feels coaching other people. There's a particular type of resistance that they bring to learning into the coaching context, and their civilian employment. That's not it. I'm not casting aspersions. It's something that we've observed and we've studied and we've documented, and we know how to overcome that resistance, and that's part of what we want to help you understand. Their expectations, as I said, are skewed, and so it's going to throw you as a coach. You're going to be faced with a lot of kind of things that you haven't had to work with before, in terms of what the coachee is bringing. They often, not always, but often can bring a very abrasive communication style, and it might be a coach's instinct to lock in on that and say, oh, that's where we need to, focus our coaching. But actually, that's low down on the list of priorities. So being comfortable yourself with a very different energy coming at you at times can be very different. And your response to that will need to be very different. And also the outcome focus. In the military, there's not a value placed on reflection and self-awareness and exploration and self-discovery and all that we love about coaching. And so the value is on results and task execution and accomplishing the mission. And so that orientation to work is very, very different. And veterans bring that into the market with them when they start to look for a job and when they get a job. So often in my experience, I'll just share this. I've been called in when things are going wrong. Someone put in the chat, how to coach someone to know who they are out of the military context. So out of uniform, for example, is the kind of the code for that. So I've often been called in when someone is still in uniform, so their employer reaches out and we need to kind of remediate the situation. That's not always the context that you'll encounter your coaching clients. Many of them may be active duty. as part of a leadership training program, for example. That may be your context for coaching them. But regarding this particular element of coaching, the military transition is very complicated and requires very different skill set among coaches. That's what we're trying to change. So that leads us to this exciting program. I couldn't be happier to be bringing this into the market finally. To very specifically ICF accredited coaches, because the program is not here to teach you how to be a coach. You are a coach. You've been accredited. And I don't want any part of putting bad coaches out on the street. So the fact that you're bringing that ICF accreditation into this program is what makes you eligible for it. We're adding to your domain expertise of coaching. And this program is important on so many levels. I can't tell you how many people approach me on LinkedIn as experts on military transition. And really what they are is either at best well-intended helpers, at worst they're predatory opportunists. And in most cases, they're underinformed and they really are not bringing substance to the veteran. But the veteran coming out of military service is inundated with, offers of help and support, and you've got to take this class and you've got to get this kind of a coach. And they don't have any way of discriminating or differentiating, like, what is a quality program that would actually help me? What is truly, who is an expert out there in this market where anybody can call themselves an expert or anybody can call themselves a coach, and they do. You know that. We see it all the time, right? So what we are doing is we're actually bringing a level of quality into the market for veterans so that they can differentiate and so that their employers can differentiate the coaches who actually understand this dynamic and the phenomenon and are in a position, have been educated to quickly accelerate progress through the military transition so that the veteran can be a contributing, engaged, and satisfied employee. So that's a huge piece of why this is important, why the market needs this program. The other reason is because we as coaches need to be able to differentiate ourselves from the massive numbers of coaches who are out there. Also, I'm sure very qualified ICF certified coaches. It's just a big, big market, right? And so if it's possible for us to differentiate ourselves in the markets that are important to us. So for example, if you work in the defense contracting market, this is an important certification for you to have. If you're a career counselor in a university, something like this is going to be important for you. If you simply find yourself living or working in an area where you are seeing a lot of active duty or veteran clients, you need to take this class. This is a competitive edge. It's also going to help you succeed. And with some of our faculty are on the call, and I'm going to ask a couple of them to say a few words about how they see this as professional coaches, having gone through the program. Also, hey, 30 CCEs, nothing to sneeze at. 20 of those are coach competencies. 10 are resource development. So anyone out there who knows what I'm talking about knows that that's worth something. We can just, it's meant for any coach who's accredited. You'll learn a lot. You'll learn frameworks that have been used and proven for decades. A way of actually structuring the transition experience for a veteran so they understand where they are and where they're going and how to recognize where they need to shore up. And you'll get all of the tools we've developed, activities, coaching, homework assignments, all of the things that are proven to move veterans smoothly and successfully through this kind of quagmire of learning that they have to do if they want to be successful as a civilian employee. So that there is a set of tools that they need that they don't bring into the market with them from the military. And coaches are perfectly positioned to help them build those habits, build those tools. So as I said, the CMTC credential, those letters behind your name mean something a lot. It's not just a marketing thing. It means that you are representing quality, integrity, and distinction in a market that desperately needs it. I can't even tell you how many pitches I have had, pitches that people have made to me under the guise of, military transition expertise that were exploitive, that were dangerous. I mean, I had a company at one point approach me about an AI solution to counseling veterans, and you know, there's just a lot of stuff out there that is not serving this population, and that's mucking up the environment and making it very hard for consumers to make a good purchasing decision. And this is part of what you're getting when you take this course. So I'd like to invite at this point, I have a couple of coaches in particular who are part of the Grandinetta Group faculty that I'd like to invite to just say a few words. Mark House, are you willing to just speak up, and can we unmute him,
You
Nikki?
bet. I
And then
think
I'll
I'm
ask
good.
Rita.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Perfect. So I have been coaching full time since 2010, and I've actually been coaching at the Darden School of Business with Jim Collins and Jan Nelson. That particular university attracts a lot of military and veterans. So I've worked with about 75 over the last 15 years. And even with that experience going through this program, I've learned some new language and new approaches. I think it is important to recognize that there's some base coaching skills that work well, but specifically things like language, like we were just talking about this, knowing what a skiff is, knowing what theater is, and it's not somewhere where you watch a movie. That kind of language is going to trip you up talking to military veterans, understanding what tickets mean and what they can and cannot talk about. So this is going to orient you so that you can more quickly get trust with those leaders that are so vital to our commercial and military.
great. Thank you, Mark. Rita, as a veteran and a professional coach, would you like to speak up?
Sure. I've known Emily for a long time. I got to be part of Emily's launch of the very first version of a program for veterans at the company we both worked at. And I was, as a veteran myself, I'd already been out for like 3 or 4 years. And even in helping her launch the program, I learned so much. I wish I'd had it when I transitioned out because I made a lot of mistakes that I would have avoided for sure. And then since then, I had a long career in the industry, but I decided to become a coach. So I'm recently ACC certified and am seeing so much benefit from the specifics of this program. So I've learned the competencies of coaching and I know all the ICF models, but now I've got this added layer on top that I feel can really help me differentiate, like Emily said, and help me connect with the veterans. And so I can't speak highly enough of how much quality content is in this program.
Thanks, Rita. Is there anyone else from the faculty that would like to chime in? We'd love to hear from you.
Sure. I'm Jan Baer. I'm not a coach. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist, and I'm excited to be part of this faculty. So for a long part of my career, I analyzed the comparison and similarities between military and civilian jobs, which are used by some of the military programs as veterans are leaving to help them find a job that is similar to the job they've done in the service. And I sort of thought that that was the best thing to do and that was sufficient. But after going through Emily's course and learning about all of the other nuances and the challenges with the transition, I realized how much more I had to learn. And I think that the information that Emily provides is essential for ensuring that veterans have the support they need to make the transition as smooth as possible.
Thanks, Jan. One of the things that Al, did you want to speak up?
Yeah, I can speak up. My name's Alex King. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm an occupational therapist, not a coach, but we have similar processes with our clients. And I also work with organizations and a lot of schools on culture development and building external context to support the humans that are there. And I mean, I've gotten very skeptical of extra certifications and letters behind people's names over the last 10 years because you can buy them and you can go to a course in a weekend and add these things. So it's hard for me at this point to like get on board with new certification programs. But what one thing I've learned, and like Emily touched on how marketable these letters would be because of the need in the market right now, but also as a therapist, when I market something like that and then show up and it turns out that was marketable and now I have 20 clients coming or now I have a gig, then the next level of anxiety hits about like, am I really ready for this? Am I offering something of value? Or am I just putting letters behind my name to get a gig and then hoping that the skills are there? And what I've really enjoyed about Emily's work is that it really like it unlocks the things I'm already good at as a therapist, the skills we already have working with people, and gives us the external context and the internal context of the veteran coming out and where they're going so that I really feel like it's more unlocking my skills and giving me the information I need to work with people and be able to meet them where they're at and be ready for them coming in crisis or in readiness. And instead of it feeling like I'm learning something entirely new, it's really just unlocking the things and giving me the specific information I need to do my job well. So I think it's pretty cool and exciting to see a certification come out that's both marketable and really valuable as a therapist when I end up in front of a client.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. One of the things that drives me to build this content for this program, but also for the Accelerated Military Transition Program, which is for the veteran, and it's for the employer who needs to do a better job of onboarding their veterans so that they can accelerate time to performance and increase their likelihood of engagement. All of this work is based on the fact that there are very predictable patterns that veterans go through or that they represent or they present in a coaching engagement. It's very predictable, but and solvable, which I've spent my career doing, solving for those and helping veterans become successful in their civilian careers. But it hasn't been scalable until now. And it amazes me that the study of military transition and the provision of support for military transition has remained as stagnant as it has. I mean, and yet everybody knows it. 2 weeks ago, I presented at the National Veterans Conference for the National Association of State Workforce Agencies. These are all of the people who sit in the state veteran hiring commission offices working with veterans every single day. And they had their eyes completely wide open by the presentation of what we've known and been working with successfully for decades. And so, there's just a massive need for more information, and there will be other programs that come out for non-coaches. So, for example, for the practitioner who maybe works inside an organization that hires veterans, maybe they're in HR or they're in training or maybe they're career counselors. It's a related, but it's a different set of needs that group has. What I wanted to do here is really start from a strong foundation of coaching and add the piece that you will need to be successful with this particular group. Some of you have been working with veterans or with active duty for years and you have lots of experience and anecdotes, and maybe you have an inkling of what some of those patterns might be, but most coaches don't. And even those who do have a lot to learn from best practices that have been proven over the last 2 decades. So let's do it. That's what we're doing with this course. And we really have a very lofty goal of changing the landscape and just transforming how we think about and support veterans and their families through this transition. And I would love it if you would like to be part of that. Let's do it together because I can't do it by myself. Great. So where are we going next? So the course is launching, and we have our first cohort starting in September, and you are welcome to be part of that. We're doing small cohorts to begin with because I'm not going for a big, huge volume kind of sheep dip situation here. I want to really bring quality to you and have you bring quality into the market and to the veterans that you work with. So the cohort is now open for enrollment. The website there for how to enroll is there. And we have a special launch pricing, which will be in effect for cohorts running in this calendar year. I say cohorts because it's likely that we'll have to add another one or two cohorts once this one fills up, if it hasn't already. Next year, the price will go up. You can see here some details about the date. It's all virtual. You don't have to go anywhere. It's very interactive. As you can imagine, in a cohort of 12, it's going to be very engaging. There's nowhere to hide when you're in a small group of 12. And we can't wait to get started. So at this point, I'd love to either hear from others on the call or take your questions. How can we put this into reach for you?
Yeah, if you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature in the Zoom bar on the bottom of your screen. And one thing I think would be very helpful, Emily, for people to know who may not be as familiar with the term military transition. They might be
Hmm.
thinking of that as an event, something that happens when a service member leaves the service and becomes a member of the Walking Civilian Society,
Mhm.
always a veteran though. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between the perception of military transition as an event and what
Mhm.
military transition actually is, what stages they go through?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Nikki. I think this is part of the problem that exists is that the way that we define it is as if, your last day of military service is your military transition, or your first day of civilian employment means that you've transitioned successfully. And that could not be further than the truth. It's not an event. It is a life phenom. It's a season of your life. Separating from military service, which is huge. That's where the whole identity and community and those losses um, are most strongly felt, although those losses are lasting. Um, then entering this new unfamiliar world of the job market, the civilian job market, and its language and norms and how to kind of be effective. So I think there's a little bit of attention put there, and then getting that resume in order, and then just getting a job. And that is leading to very it's leading to a very transactional approach to what is actually a very deep personal process. So in At Ease, the book that came out in November, I quote from, Robert Quinn. I quote, if you've worked with veterans, the challenges they bring are deep and the solutions are not easy and they're not quick because they're bringing a completely different context, life experience. Um, into what someone who's just making a job change wouldn't experience that. Going from job to job to job, you're going to learn along the way and things are similar. And you bring that tacit learning into your next job with you. Not the case with veterans. So even after their second or third or fourth job, they still report that these moments of transition are difficult and fraught in many cases. And if they don't address the psychosocial aspects at the front end, they just prolong the learning curve. And so what Nikki was referencing when she said the stages, what military transition actually is, I developed a framework years ago that has been well tested and used and written about in At Ease. I'm not keeping it to myself. But it is a three-stage process. There's a detaching stage, which is difficult. It's characterized by resistance. It's really important that a coach is there and trained to help someone move through that phase so that they can be wide open to learning and learn as much as possible, as fast as possible in the regrouping stage, which is often where they are employed. Oftentimes, we're called in to coach people who have a job. Things aren't working or they're not adjusting or adapting as quickly as they need to, and it turns out they're still stuck in that first stage, detaching. So you'll learn all about those stages. Ultimately, they want to get into the integrating phase where they're not replacing their military identity, they're adding to it. They're actually discovering a broader sense of identity, who they are in addition to their military service and their military identity. And so it's it's a beautiful process to be part of. It can be fraught. Can't tell you how many veterans I've coached who said, "Yeah, I've already done coaching. It sucked." It's a quote. And I said, I always say, "Well, but you haven't done it with me, so give me a shot." And that's what we have the opportunity to do here is to make a very real difference made based on very real tactical, practical approaches that are founded on a strong base of coaching.
Yeah. I think that's important to remember as somebody who recently went through this experience with their spouse, right? He was 14 years active duty. He had 2 kids. He was ready to find out who he was outside of the military service. And it was very much during that exit, so much was focused on find the job, find the job, find the job. So little of it was focused on, well, who are you? What do you want to excel at? That piece of things. And even now, we're 4 years into working as a contractor for NASA. We left Hampton Roads, came to Huntsville, and even now, you still have those moments of I expect that clarity and immediacy to come out of my coworkers' mouths, and it doesn't. Like he still very much approaches things the same way he did for 14 years in the military. And it's an introvert in a room full of engineers, so that makes everything better, right? But what I can say is using Emily's At Ease and taking the accelerated military transition course, having my corporate experience of over 20 years and of being a military spouse with him, but also having my own corporate career, I could see I had so much more language to share with him and really work through with him. And so that kind of brings us to a question from Jan. And I can speak to this, but I want you to really talk about this is many active duty or married or have kids, and similarly the spouse and family transition as the veteran transitions. Does this program examine this part of the transition? I know that the book does, and I know that the course does because that's one of your key features. So can you talk a little bit about how you incorporate that into the coaching program?
Sure. I mean, even just listening to you talk, Nikki, you said we made the transition to
We do.
NASA. You know what I mean? It is military service is a family affair, and the transition out of military service is a family affair. And there needs to be a mutual understanding and support system there. Because often what I hear from the spouses, and you probably do too, Nikki, is, how difficult it is watching their spouse go through this excruciating process of learning, this new set of rules while they're being assessed and in front of their peers. And and all the self-doubt and that they're not used to seeing in their spouse and the stress that's coming into the house and all of that, that is very, very real. And so as you know, as coaches, most often we're coaching the whole person, right? So this is very much aligned with that. Um, Most of the thousands of veterans I've coached at this point, um, they often comment on how their wife or their husband is really liking me. They've never met me as the coach, but they're fully supportive of what is happening in the coaching engagement because they can see it and they can feel it in the way that their spouse is shifting in mindset, in openness. So I don't know if that's answering your question, Jan, but um, all of that is part of this program for sure. In fact, I have another program that was mentioned, the Accelerated Military Transition Program. That's the one that is designed for the veteran. We invite them at no additional cost to bring their, what we call their person, their primary support person, into that learning experience with them, because that's where the impact will happen. You know, there'll be impact on the person individually, but even more powerfully if their primary support person is learning what they're learning, practicing what they're practicing. Very powerful.
Great. So we have a question from uh Teresa and technically Amani as well. Theirs are kind of similar, related to the logistics of the program itself. So, what's the cohort approach that's going to be used, and then how often are you going to meet, and how long before people decide to make this commitment? What does that look like for them?
Well, you know, this first cohort is going to fill very quickly. So from a timing standpoint, I don't know what to tell you, but if we get, you know, we're hoping that we will add more cohorts that run concurrently if the demand is there. So I'll just tackle that one there. But in terms of how the cohort is structured, it is a series of weekly 90-minute workshops that are held virtually. On the Kajabi platform for anybody who knows or cares. And there is very important pre-work for each one of those workshop calls that we do. And so the commitment of time, I would say is probably, including the weekly call, is probably 3 to 4 hours a week. And faculty, you can correct me if you've experienced that differently, but that is my guess. You can certainly expand that, and we hope that you will. But at a minimum, I think it would probably be 3 to 4 hours. There are 8 workshops, weekly workshops, and then the program concludes with a certification demo, interactive one-on-one call or one-on-two call between the participant and the instructors. So normally that would be, in this cohort, will be me leading the instruction, and one of the faculty will also be role playing with you, just like we did in most of, you know, probably most of the accredited coaching programs. You have to do a final demo. And the demo is less about evaluating you as a coach, because again, we're not trying to create new coaches. We want coaches who have been certified and educated and who have proven themselves worthy of that ICF accreditation, and build on this content piece and best practices for how and when to weave things in, and kind of the arc of a veteran coaching engagement, and where to use certain tools and pitfalls to avoid, watch outs for coaches. That's what's happening those are happening in the workshops. And then finally we do the certification demo, so we can just see where are you in terms of integrating the content and best practices and tools with what you already are bringing as a trained coach. And the certification, as you know, was given 30 CCEs by ICF. 20 of those are coach competencies. That's significant for anyone who's had to renew their certification, and 10 of them are resource development. Any other questions? Anything I didn't answer?
They
Yes,
want to know if there's going to be a specific day of the week that's already
yes,
decided.
yes, the first cohort has been scheduled, and when you go to the website to look at it, you'll see the dates. It's weekly September 4th through November 13th, with a couple of breaks given holidays and different things. So that should lay it out for you. And you know, again, if those dates aren't convenient for you, but you're eager to enroll, the hope is we'll have a second or third cohort running, and we'll be able to kind of work together to figure out what the timing will be of those calls.
Is there a specific day of the week and time? So we know that the dates are September 4th through the 13th,
Mhm.
but will there be specific days of weeks and what times have already been decided for cohort one?
Yes. I believe it's Thursdays from 2 to 3:30 Eastern because we want to make it convenient. I apologize. I should have had that information at the ready. But we want to try to keep it workable by having a set day of the week and a time that's consistent. Thursday. Thanks, Mark.
And can you have Amani might have to clarify this for me, but Amani's question is, can we have dates to meet with cohorts outside of the workshop? So I guess small group meetups for the coaches
Oh
themselves.
yeah, that is very encouraged. And there are
Okay.
some assignments that actually require you to do that. So peer learning is a very important part of that. I don't know if any of the faculty want to speak to that piece, but for sure. Any other questions?
For absences, are there makeup days for absences on workshop days?
We will work with you to figure that out for sure. Um,
Yeah. The expectation is when you're enrolling for the commitment. I know that I'll be able to make it on these particular days for this amount of weeks. But understanding that life happens and can happen, Emily and her team will be very happy to discuss with you, especially if you know something is going on in advance. That's very helpful to know. Any other questions before we shut down for the day? And just want to thank everybody for their time. I know that it's a lot to ask you to take out your lunch break on a Tuesday, or for some of us who are further west, your morning coffee for your lunch day. I just want to speak to the fact that I thank so many of you for showing up for helping families like mine go through the transitions that we do go through. It is not a an easy journey for us. I can say that um, my hope is that you enroll in the program, but even if you do not, I hope that you will take time to grab a copy of At Ease, the Guide to a Smooth and Successful Military Transition. My husband and I both used it. So for the person asking about how does this relate to the family, it was incredibly helpful. It's even incredibly helpful in my own career as a business owner, right? Is taking a look at some of the reflective questions that Emily asks in that book. It's a great gift for anybody you know departing the military, anybody you know who has a military member in their family. It's just an incredible resource as a standalone. And I believe that you also get the book, correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, as you enroll in the program, you get a copy of the book as well.
that is so.
Okay, great. For everybody else, Emily, are we going to allow this recording to be available to listen to for those who might have been in and out of the call? Or do you just want them to follow up with you for any additional questions?
Some version of this will definitely be available at some point. And you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly. If you have questions, I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Perfect. Nobody else has any other questions. We thank you all for your attendance today, and please let us know how we can help.
Thanks, everybody. Let's do some good. Let's change the situation for veterans. Bye.
Teresa, I'm going to give you the copy of the book.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Here you go. There's the link for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is great. I'm already on a coach bench for leadership development for the military on a major prime contractor. And I think this would be additionally really great to know more about. So
Wonderful.
and I'm a fellow alum from Georgetown University.
Woohoo! What cohort?
45.
I was 20.
Oh,
I've been doing this for a minute.
oh wow. Yeah. Really
Yeah,
great
then you
program.
know what I'm talking about when I say the massive number of coaches that just that program alone is putting into the market every year.
Exactly. And I really appreciate too what you said, because that's been my experience is with the variation in coaching. Even people that, well, thank God we have ICF accreditation. That's a major distinguisher, but there really is just so much that just depends on the individual and their experience and their ability to connect. I've worked with some
Yeah.
really, and I had the benefit of working, 20 years in defense contracting. So worked with a lot of military, and you're right. And it's just the what they go through, their mission, they're such high character. Everybody I've always met were highest of character and, morality and mission driven and just all good people. And then the very senior leaders, just intellectual powerhouses. I got to say, one thing I was hoping that you would touch on maybe, or maybe you can direct me how I can help with this, is I thought the way that these very senior leaders who've gone through all of this development and training, right?
Hmm.
The way that you're going to a pyramid point where there's just not enough work for them, if you will, see very
Hmm.
senior levels, so they have to go to civilian life. And I'm like, why are we not like seeding our homeland security and our industry? Like, why isn't there more of a constructed approach to seeding the US infrastructure with this highly intelligent, highly trained, um, you know, group of people? I just don't understand that. It's like, why
Yeah, I don't
pull
know if
them?
you've experienced this, Teresa, but I know having come from the defense contracting industry myself, they were identifying and courting those officers years before they were ready to leave service. And it was a strategy around, there's some legality around how to contact those people and when. But it was very strategic, and I imagine it still is in terms of trying to grab those folks up before they leave service.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Anyway, thanks so much for coming. Great to talk to you, Teresa.
Thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
This is wonderful
Bye.
work.
Bye,
Bye.
Hey,
Ramona.
hi there. Hey, Emily. I'm also the Georgetown cohort 67, so
Oh
I'm a
my
little
goodness.
recent. And I agree with Teresa about the certification of the ICF, but I'm also a military veteran, and I just clicked in about my own transition coming out, and I'm glad you are offering this course. And so I'm kind of looking at it to again supplement my own ICF credentials, because I think you're right. And I just thinking about what I went through was just it was so strange. And then when I got into the civilian workforce, about what you and Nikki talked about, relationship and trust building, as opposed to in the military, you trying to be efficient and trying to be direct, and people don't quite get it. So
Mhm.
I'm glad you're offering this course, and so I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you, Amani, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yeah, welcome to the coaching community.
thank you. So we'll probably be in touch, but thank you for doing this launch party.
You're welcome. Take good care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. All right. Emily, I'm going to pop off the meeting and then I'll connect with you. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nikki.
You're welcome.
Great job. Bye.